I feel like Stu and James and Chad, like they were kind of in the peak of the traditional media era, you know, like the magazines, online was just sort of coming in, and there was no social media. Like that was probably the worst era to live in if you were like the top athlete, you know.
What's up, everybody? It's Dave Drakes with The Collective Experience, and we are back for another TCE interview. And this week, I'm amped because, let's face it, this guy does not need any introduction. You guys know him, Mr. Gypsy Tales himself. It's the one and only Jase. What's going on, brother?
Hey, man, how are ya?
Doing good, man. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I've been like talking to AJ Cat, like I said, and I've been like, dude, it'd be cool to get Jase on one of these things. You know, people are sick of seeing AJ. They want to see some cool people. So I'm glad we're able to get this going and schedule it. This is gonna be awesome. I'm amped to talk to you.
Nah, same, dude. Hey, I'm definitely a fan of what you guys have got going on.
Greatly appreciate that. Everybody knows Gypsy Tales has been freaking just crushing it content wise lately. There's so much content out, and everybody I'm sure has heard the whole DV pulp thing of like, oh, there's too much content, too much vlogs, too much blah blah blah. I feel like you're the one exception. Everybody listens to Gypsy Tales. Everybody is tuned in, strapped in, listening from start to finish. There's very few podcasts that I will listen to start to finish and hop on YouTube to watch the clips, and yours is definitely on the top of the list. What do you attribute to just the phenomenal success that the podcast has had over the last couple of years?
Mate, honestly, luck. Like I just, I feel like there's kind of like different types of luck that you have in your life, and I think that, you've kind of got like this blind luck that you could just, it's completely random. You could never predict it or anticipate it, and then something happens to you, and that can either be good luck or bad luck. And I guess in my case, it sort of started with bad luck. I had some visa stuff go down. I was in America for a long time. Then I just had some like complications with my health. I left when I wasn't supposed to, like one of those deals. Went to go back, and doors were closed. So then I was like, all right, well, guess I'm going to go home and try and figure this thing out. And literally just started the podcast from that. So there's luck right there, and then I think there's just the different kinds, like you go through the different kinds of luck. And then I guess there's the kind of luck where cool shit starts to happen to you because of the foundations that you've laid in the past, and things circle back because you're in the right place at the right time. So yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just like all these different kinds of luck, like probably a little bit of bad luck at the start, some good luck in the middle, and then I think over time, as you just like work really hard at things, you just get luckier the harder that you work. And then people are giving you these opportunities, and then the opportunities make the brand look better, and then that makes new opportunities. So yeah, a lot of hard work, a lot of luck. I don't think there's anything special about me, or there's no secret sauce. I don't think. I think that it's also luck too, that if people connect with it, because I'm just literally myself, probably to a fault sometimes. Like I'm probably to myself. But yeah, it's like there's also a lot of luck in people just like resonating with what you say. Like, these are my views, this is how I think, this is how I talk, and I'm lucky that people like it. So I would say a lot of luck and a lot of hard work.
I'm sure it's more hard work than people imagine, man. I mean, it's a big undertaking just doing all of that stuff. I want to get back a step, because I feel like, and some people's eyes, they feel like you had like overnight success. Like, boom, one day there's no Gypsy Tales. Next day there was everyone loved Gypsy Tales. How did you get your start in the sport? Because I think you've talked about it a lot. You were in the States for a while, and you did a lot on the like the media side. How did you get your start in the sport, and what led you on to that path?
Yeah, so pretty much, man, like I just sort of don't really have a memory in my life without bikes in it. My dad raced motocross and supercross when he was younger, and yeah, I mean, all the pictures that I've got as a kid is like sitting on like a toy motorbike or sitting on dad's motorbike. And then, like I was saying, we sort of lived like the northernmost town on the East Coast, really. Like kind of once you got a little bit past our town north, like there was just dirt roads from there. And a lot of our like our cousins and uncles were in the police force. And so they would like get stationed in these remote Aboriginal towns of, you know, like super small, like one road town kind of thing. And we'd just go up there, and we had a PW50, and that was like, man, that's what we lived for, you know. And we'd do these trips where, like, I've actually done the ride now with my dad, which is pretty cool, me and my brother and my dad. But we'd drive from Cairns to the very tip of Australia. It's like 2,000 kilometers of just dirt road and single track in the outback. And like my mum would drive a support vehicle with all like the sleeping equipment, and my dad and his friends would ride the bikes to the top. So I mean, it's just sort of one of those things where it's just been around my whole life. And then didn't sort of get to race too much when I was younger, but then I ended up saving up, worked a couple jobs and bought my own CR125 and started sort of racing, and been kind of racing as a weekend warrior ever since. And I sort of knew I was never going to be pro, but I got a lot of friends that were like really good, like Todd Waters, one of my best mates, and he's the Australian champ, and you know, like Jackson Richardson and, you know, Wilson Todd, and sort of all these local crew went on to do pretty big things. I just knew I wasn't going to be that guy. So then I got a camera, I started filming, and then that pretty much led to me going to America eventually, to film over there. And then I sort of had like my film career there, and then come back to Australia, and the whole podcast thing kind of kicked off. So that's it in a nutshell.
No, that's right. And you know what's crazy is, like, even you being a whole world away, like your background, like how you got started in the sport, reminds me of how I got started. You know what I mean? Like, you know, in Connecticut, Caribbean family, just, you know, some land, a little Yamaha, and like that's exactly like my story. And I think that's so freaking cool that, like, even though again you're in a whole different part of the world, like moto is like the same. You know what I mean? Like everybody's starting point is the same. That's super rad to me. Talk a little bit about.
Well, I thought about it too. Like, I thought about it. I mean, it's kind of, I've done a lot of thinking about it recently, just because of the way that life's turned out as a result of motorcycles. But I feel like for a lot of us, man, like when could you, like, if you give a kid a PW50, you're like giving this kid like this motor and these wheels to balance on, and then it's like total freedom. And, you know, like I first rode a PW50, I was like 4 years old. So it's like, what else can you give a kid at 4 years old that gives them that type of power and freedom over like their own experience? And, you know, obviously as a 4-year-old, you're not thinking that, but I mean, I've thought about it so much these days, man. Like I've been just straight addicted to that feeling of just freedom. Like that's what it is. Like there's just nothing else. And I think when you give a kid that from such a young age, I think that's why you can see things like dirt bikes and BMX and, you know, these kind of like more action sports. I think that's why you see guys just be obsessed with it for their entire life. And I think it's a super healthy obsession if you can kind of frame it and use it as like a bit of a tool. And that's definitely what bikes has become for me, is just like this super healthy obsession. It's like a vessel that I try and like live other shit through, you know?
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, there's something to be said for how enthralling it is. I know this sounds cheesy, but like, dude, it captures your soul, man. Like, I still remember, you know, 5 and 6 year old Dave just like drooling over bikes in a magazine. You know what I mean? All my people were dirt bikes. I don't care about social studies. I want to hear about dirt bikes. I want to see McGrath. I want to see Pastrana. I want to see Stew. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How much it grabs your attention, and nothing gives you that same rush. You know what I mean? I mean, when you're a kid, that's the ultimate. Like you said, you're in control of your freedom, you're in control of your own experience. You have a freaking motor, an explosion between your legs with as much you want to do whatever you want. Like nothing comes close to capturing that. You know what I mean?
And you're like 4 years old.
Yeah, and you're a baby.
Yeah.
How to like talk properly, and you're freaking out there like rolling jumps and hitting berms. Like, it's crazy. This is a crazy sport.
And it's like when you see that your dad's doing that too, it's like every kid, their dad's their hero. Like my dad's still my fucking hero. And it's like when you can do something at 4 years old that your dad can do, like that's a crazy connection there. And you know, like there's not a lot of other places you can relate to people in that same way, or like relate to your parents in that way.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I always tell people too, like, you know, meeting people outside of moto, which is always a weird thing because they always think we're a little touched in the head. But when they're like, oh, you know, like you talk to your parents a lot, man. Like you spend a lot of time with them. It's like, yeah, dude, like,
yes,
because of moto, we're this tight. Like what other 17 or 18-year-old dudes do you know that are with their parents every single weekend, chasing their hopes and dreams together? Like, it's a rare deal, man. And I think like that's one reason why our dads and, you know, people that we idolize become our heroes, man. Like I agree with you. My dad, I've never seen somebody tear apart an engine that fast. And even to this day, as much experience as I have with motors and stuff, like I cannot do that. My dad is still my hero when it comes to like pulling the motor down and knowing exactly what's going on at any minute with that bike. So I agree, man. It's and again, it's cool to see like the parallels. It's trippy.
Yeah.
Like, even being so far away, but
yeah,
no, that's rad. I think that's super cool. I want to talk a little bit about the media portion of your career when you were in the States, because I feel like you're like brushing it under the rug a little bit, but you did some pretty tight shit, man. Like the stuff you were doing is rad, like most people would dream of. Like, walk me through how you got your start with that and some of the cool stuff that you've been able to, you know, record and film, because I don't think many people know just like the brevity and like the high grandioseness of the stuff that you've captured on film for people.
Yeah, so I guess I started I was fully inspired by Wes at Verb. So that's if I'm Eminem, that's Dr. Dre. Like that's my dude. So I was like, okay, there's no one's doing the video thing in Australia. There's one guy before me, shout out, he's still one of my fucking boys to this day, Guy Streeter. So he was making some DVDs, but no one was doing like the online thing. So I was like, all right, I'm going to start the Verb Moto of Australia and call it MX Daily. I was working for a print magazine. Originally, I was a writer. Like I loved to write. And that's what I did before. I've never really talked about too much, but I worked for a magazine in Australia, like a dirt bike magazine, and I was like assistant editor of that. And then I quit that magazine. I didn't like the dude that runs it. And then so I quit that, and then I was just driving one day, and literally it was just like MX Daily. And then I got home from where I was driving, typed it in, no one had it. So then I started that website, and I just pretty much was just trying to copy Verb, you know, like that's how I kind of got my skills. And then, yeah, dude, I just got obsessed with filming. Like I just wanted to do a really, really good job of making dirt bike videos. And then that got me to the States for Motocross of Nations in 2010. And that was, my first time there. I went and I filmed Parla. And then I went from Parla to Motocross of Nations, and then I flew back to California. I was staying at Ryan Walters' house with him and Berriman. So that's how me and Berriman are so tight. So literally like my first week I was in America, me and Berriman and Ryan Walters were living together. And then the crazy thing, like again, luck, like I was only supposed to be in America 2 weeks. I had like $1,500 in my bank account for 2 weeks in America. And then the travel agency that booked my flight, they fucked up my flight, and instead of 2 weeks, I was there for 2 months. So I just crashed on Ryan Walters' couch for 2 months and just filmed like every day as much as I could. And then that sort of ended in me driving across the country with Walters, Berriman, for the Eastbound and Down tour, which we filmed for Verb, and then went to Bremen, Georgia, and then I went back to California, back to Australia, and then from then on, I was just like, I'm coming back here. So then I ended up pitching a series called Coming to America to Jay from JDR, who's still one of my best mates to this day. And then we made that web series, and there wasn't really web series going on in the way that there kind of are now. So that was kind of pretty, like, you know, I think that was like 2011 we did that. So yeah, we were kind of like really trying to innovate. Like Jay saw the whole video thing coming, I saw the video thing coming, and then at the end of that year we shot Dream Ride. I don't know if you remember that, with Malcolm and Josh Keisha in Australia. So that was like, yeah, like that was in my hometown. We used like $500,000 for the cameras. Like I just literally was like, I want to do the coolest moto video ever. Malcolm had just signed with the team. Keisha was a fucking gnarly little dude. So we did that. And then, yeah, from then on, man, it was just like, just trying to do project after project and sort of step shit up. I had like the ultimate goal of being like working in Hollywood, like directing movies and shit like that. But that's what I thought I wanted. And then, yeah, like, I mean, some of the coolest shit, like I did a ton of stuff with Wes and Red Bull. So pretty much anything that you would have seen with Red Bull over the last, you know, from like 2012 to 2018, whether that was like Moto Spy, whether that was, you know, like Donna partying with Taylor Roberts and Cody Webb. And then, I did like the James Stewart scrub video where he was like pretty much dragging his handlebars up the face of that thing. Like, so I did heaps of stuff with Stewie too. Like at one point me and Stewie were pretty cool. And I'd go to the Ponderosa and film different stuff with him. And then I did some commercials for like Suzuki. I did some commercials for the US Army. So like started directing a few things. And then, yeah, as kind of the ball really started to get rolling over there, then that's when I kind of had to come back to Australia and the podcast sort of happened. But yeah, it was a weird time too. Like just being real young, like just knowing absolutely fucking nothing about life. Like I feel like if I went back there now, it'd be a totally different story. But it was like a growing up process, you know, like I was kind of alone over there. Didn't have family and shit, and I was being an adult for the first time, and I came from like not really having any money, and then having some money and no supervision in America, and then, you know, like it was just fucking, yeah, it was honestly a really weird fun time. Went to a lot of cool parties, like met a lot of really cool people, but yeah, it was, yeah, like I said, kind of a weird time now that I look back at it.
That's cool. And you know what, the fact that you're able to, like, that was like your coming of age, like being thrown into just that much just insanity of, like, that's the pinnacle of the sport. Like, and that was kind of like your foray into adulthood and into the industry, was you went from, you know, coming in the US and then boom, I'm working with Behrman, I'm working with Wes, I'm working with Red Bull. Like that's insane. That trajectory, dude. Like that's hard to top that, man.
Yeah, and it's just weird, like, even now thinking about it, you know, like, I was so fucking young, like, I actually don't know what I thought I was capable, like, I actually don't know where that even, you know, like, how I thought I could pull that off, but I was honestly just the biggest, like, fake it till you make it guy, man. Like, I would just, one of my best friends, Sam, like, you'd probably know him from the podcast, but he's got a saying, bite off more than you can chew and chew like fuck. That's honestly all I've been doing my entire life, is just like taking on so much shit and just absolutely fucking sending it, trying to make it happen. But I guess when you when you look back at it, it was pretty cool to do what I did. But yeah, I honestly don't feel like I don't even really know that person in a way, you know. I was just like, who was that kid? Like, that was literally, I was just a fucking kid.
That's super cool to me, man. And I mean, you mentioned James Stewart. Obviously, you can see behind me, I'm a huge Stu fan.
Yeah.
What's one cool, like, Stu story that, like, most people wouldn't, or I guess, know right off the top of their head?
Mate, all right, I'll give you a good Stu story. So we were filming that scrub thing at his place, and we'd been working with Malcolm for JDR, so like there was that relationship, and Stu was always around, but he never really was like kind of going out of his way to be homies or whatever, which is completely understandable, you know, like he'd be there doing his laps, he'd have his mechanics, and then I just started talking golf with him because like I love to play golf. I used to be okay at it too, and then yeah, one day we were filming and he was just like, hey man, like, how do you feel about a round of golf this afternoon? And he, at this time, I'm sure he still has the same place, but he lived at a pretty expensive golf course, and he was a member there, and so he took me, Garth, and Jay all to play golf. Garth and Jay don't even play golf, right? So he paid the money, like the visitor fee for all of us to play, and like I didn't have a t-shirt, I didn't have anything, and I get there and there's like like a Nike golf shirt there, like all the gear, like everything was set up, and we played 18 holes of golf, and it was the first time I'd really like actually kind of got to hang and speak to him, and we only talked about golf pretty much the whole time, and talked about Malcolm a bit, and yeah, I was just blown away, man. It's just like the nicest. He didn't have to do that, and it would have been really, really expensive, and like just not a. He just was super gracious host, and it was really, really funny. He's a really good golfer. He's a really, really good dude. And yeah, to sort of get to just chill and hit balls with a dude that you'd looked up to your whole life, and have him just be like the nicest guy in the world. So that's why a lot of any of the content that I talk about Stewie, like I'm a Stu fan for life. He's a legitimately great person. And yeah, it disappoints me the kind of I don't know, like the way that he went out of the sport, and the whole drug deal, definitely, like that sucks. Like he got a fucking raw end of the deal there. But and then yeah, so like after that day, I got asked to do like a bunch of his filming. So like anytime like DC Shoes or Seven or anyone needed some stuff done, there was a period of time there where I'd get that call, and it was pretty rad. And I spoke about it on maybe like the Ping podcast, I think, but I legit had a conversation with him when he was like getting ready to be done, and I was like, dude, 4 videos a year, 4 videos a year, 4 videos a year, 4 videos a year, please. Glamis, Beaumont, like any Richie Canyon, like Castillo Ranch, Zaka Station. I was like, you just do 4 videos a year, I'll help do whatever you want, please. And I fully thought that was gonna happen, but yeah, so that's my cool Stu story anyway. So Stu fan for life. I think just that one day, like he fully showed. That's like all you need to know about a person. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. That's awesome. I almost wish that like we got social media kicked off just like 5 years earlier. Cause like imagine the type of content we would get from Stu, like before, the switch off of Yamaha, before 450s, like when he was still a young kid, tons of energy. Just, I would love to have seen like all the cool behind the scenes, obviously being a behind the scenes business, behind the scenes of Stu back then. I'm sure there's so many cool stuff that wasn't captured. And the fact that you got to live it with him and hit some balls around, dude, that's rad. I mean, people would pay whatever you ask just for that opportunity, dude. So no, hats off on that one, man. That's rad. That's phenomenal.
And man, like the whole family, like all of them, they're fucking epic people, like really, really, really good people. And I guess it was just like a weird time in media and in the sport that they were sort of in it, like I feel like Stu and James and Chad, like they were kind of in the peak of the traditional media era, like the magazines, online was just sort of coming in, and there was no social media. Like that was probably the worst era to live in if you were like the top athlete, like with social media now, you can just get on there and say, like perfect examples like Dino getting on Instagram after what happened with Coop and Kenny this year. It's like he just gets on there, gets to tell his side of the story, like you can have that one-to-one connection. And even like obviously me and Mathis talked about the Hill thing, it's like that was a traditional media kind of being able to flex that muscle on him, and there's no real right of response, there's no real platform to get it out of there. It's like, and when people talk about like gatekeepers, like they are the gatekeepers. Like it's like, oh, you got something to get a message you need to get across. Okay, well you need to get it in Racer X. Oh, who owns Racer X? Well, the guy that just So yeah, you're right. Like it would have been interesting. It would have been interesting to see if the eras were a little bit different.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm glad you brought up the Hill thing, because I've been a lifelong Hill fan. His number in amateurs is 175, mine is 175. So
Sick.
he's like, yeah, I think he's like a year or so older than me. So when I started like, following him and stuff, I'm like, this guy's so gnarly. And you meet him and okay, he's cool, like level head, good family and stuff like that. And yeah, all that stuff that came out about him, I was like, that doesn't sound right. Like, again, we didn't have social media like as prevalent as it is now, so we couldn't get that full story. But like something just, I'm like, that doesn't sound like the kid that like we've all been watching and we know, and you know what I mean? Like there was just some sort of disconnect. So I'm glad, you guys kind of like finally touched on it and went over that stuff and brought it to light, which I think is, you do a great job on your podcast of actually bringing up these older stories and bringing like the actual truth behind it. So yeah, kudos to you.
Well, I mean, people like Josh Hill, like this is one of the things that I actually wish I said this on the thing with Steve, was like, you're fucking up, because that's a really great dude. So that's like a great dude that you don't know. And there's so many guys that would have like, beef, and it's like Jason Anderson, fucking legend. Like, take a dirt bike out of the equation. Like, forget how he can ride a dirt bike. Legitimately one of the coolest people I've ever met. And, like people, the criticism that I've seen about myself is like, oh, it's just a bro down. It's like, hey, they're fucking good people, man. Like, what's this? Who's to say that I like can't just enjoy good people and put out like, it's like, hey, this is a guy that rides dirt bikes. Also a super cool motherfucker. Been through a lot of shit in his life. You celebrate this person, celebrate the stuff that they've done well. Hopefully that rubs off on some people that don't have that kind of influence in their life, or haven't seen or heard those kind of stories of like overcoming adversity, or whatever it is. So yeah, to me, I mean, I get bummed. It's like you're just missing out on some fucking great dudes.
I agree, man. And even going a step further back, like back to the Stu thing, like I think a lot of people kind of wrote him off a little bit too, even after the whole the WADA issues, and even before, people would think he was kind of cocky or blah blah blah, and it just you just don't have the full story. And like you said, the guy is actually super super cool, and just get a chance to get like the full brevity of the full person, you know what I mean? Don't just throw them in your own perspective, like get to know them a little bit. And I think that goes a long way. And again, when we do have more in-depth media, more in-depth coverage, like Gypsy Tales, or like some of the other bigger podcasts out there, I think that it creates fans. And a perfect example is like, I was never a big Dungey fan, like growing up. Like, yeah, I respected the guy. I thought he was super, super cool, super good. But I was like, I wanted to see RV just go all out and hanging out. I wanted to see, Trey Kennard do some cool stuff. So he wasn't really, my top five. Until I started hearing him more on like, podcasts and even meeting him in person. Like, what a freaking like awesome dude, man.
Oh, dude, yeah.
He's like the model human. Like, I don't know how you become a nicer, more cool, more giving. Like, the dude is just like, by the end of the conversation, I'm just like listening to him talk like this. You know what I mean? Like, just the nicest dude, man. And yeah, I just think we need to do a better job collectively of like just figuring out the whole person before we start, you know what I mean? Throwing in our own little ones and two opinions,
Oh, yeah, 100%. And the thing is, man, is like, I wasn't the biggest Dunge fan when he was racing. And it's like, as a racer, I'm like, fuck, like anyone but Dunge, like, but then, you kind of, you have to be able to, though, separate like the track from the person. Like it you can't hate the racer when you don't know the racer. Like, and the problem is people make shit super fucking personal, like they actually know the dude, or it's like, just because you want someone else to win the race doesn't mean the other dude's a piece of shit. But I think too, like, you can see, that's why like a guy like Jase Lawrence was so dope, because he was one of the only dudes that's ever been down to play the heel. And if you look at the most successful boxer of all time, Floyd Mayweather, like, he knew people were tuning in to watch him get knocked out. He was good enough for that to never happen, but he just kept selling, you know, like, so I mean, there's even value in being the dude that people don't like if you play it right. But at the end of the day, it's like, do I think Floyd Mayweather's a piece of shit? No, he's a fucking family man. Like, he's got kids and he's, you know, got like all these people he looks after and like businesses. Like, people are just people.
No, I agree, man, 100%. And I think that's a super good point. Plus, another good point is, like, we can all do one thing and get to it in different ways. So, people giving Jason Anderson a bunch of crap for not doing the Alden Baker program, or people, you know, saying that, okay, Dungy goes too hard with this training or whatever. I mean, there's so many different ways, so many different perspectives, and so many different like avenues to still achieve what you want to achieve. I don't have to adhere to some whatever strict blah 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 if it doesn't work for me, or I don't have to be lackadaisical. I can go all out and train as hard as I want to, and that just works for me. You know what I mean? We all can be a little bit different, and I kind of like that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
That brings me up to another point. Like, and you and I were talking a little bit about it through the DMs, and like, when you had Bogle on, and you brought up a lot of his, you know, the cultural stuff, and a lot of the fact that, you know, him and Colt, they don't look like your typical racer. They're not from, you know, the average place. You know, these guys have got, like, you know, native blood, and you never hear about that too much. And you know, I love the line that you guys coined. It's like, race doesn't matter, but race does matter. You know what I mean? And I think you did a good job at tying it all up at the end. Like, yeah, we all can celebrate our backgrounds and our differences, and know that just because I like this one thing, or I look this one way, at the end of the day, I can still, you know, we're all still the same. We're all still moto nerds. We all still like riding two wheels, and we all can get to, you know, the same destination. We all can still be badasses on dirt bikes, champions, what have you.
Yeah, well, I think I probably wish I said race doesn't matter, but culture does, because I mean that might be a little bit more accurate, right? Because for me, like, there's a whole cult, like, Black America. I feel like Black culture is culture in America. Like, you don't, or like the fashion that comes from it, the predominant music that comes from it, like, Black culture is proliferated through pop culture. You look at any Met Gala, like, Black America is probably culturally one of the most significant, I guess, like, sectors of it. And I mean, when I was doing the filming thing was pretty cool. Like, I've shot like professional NBA players, and it's like the fucking vibe of a group of black dudes is so much different than the vibe of a group of white dudes. Like, you know, the fucking singing and the dancing and the, like, it's worth celebrating. Like, to me, like, I look on the outside in and I'm like, fuck, that's cool. Like, that is a really, really cool thing. Like, you go back to the Stewarts, like, I never seen a moto family interact the way that the Stewarts would interact with each other. Like, that's a fucking fun group of people to be around. And that isn't a racial thing, that's like a cultural thing. You know, that stems from culture. And, you know, like, you look at, say, Colt and Bogle, like, they're growing up in Oklahoma, like, that's a Native American. There's like a cultural thing there. Like, dude, how the fuck has Colt Nichols, being a Cherokee Indian, never been mentioned in a Supercross broadcast? Like, he's crossing the finish line, winning the title, and it's like, a fucking Cherokee just won Supercross. Like, are you kidding me? And it's like, that's dope as fuck. Like, that's a cool story. And this has practical implications, right? I look at, and I said this in that video, Jalik Swole, dope black kid. If you're like the influences, like, or the people that influence you have a huge impact on, like, the kind of lane that you want to choose. Like, how many white rappers are there? Not that many. Why? Because there's not that many. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you grow up looking at like, oh, that's a black thing, like rap is a black thing, there's not many white people that do that, then it's like you just don't have like this generational cycle of, you know, white rappers and these communities of white rappers and these white rap groups and the, you know, like this white rappers. It's like, it's such a slow random trickle because it takes like this really weird outside belief. It's like a fringe belief. Like if I wanted to quit the podcast and be a fucking white rapper, like that's a tough job description for me to do, you know what I mean? Like you'd be really like breaking some boundaries, and you'd be really like, that would be an uphill struggle for you, just because there's not people like you around. Like you don't have those people to draw inspiration from, you don't have those people to collaborate with. And you know, like you look at a kid like Jalik Swole, it's like he's got a couple black motocross dudes that he could have looked up to as a kid. And it's like, let's say Jalik Swole's not in the picture right now, and then we've got this gap of this generation. How many kids are still watching James Stewart tapes? You know, like that's not in the... So it's like you kind of need Jalik Swole. Like there's this generational effect that happens. And, you know, like Bogle and Colt, like if you're not celebrating that one's the Seminole Indian and one's a Cherokee Indian, and if that's not a message out there, then it's like you're kind of really limiting the like the kid that can have an impact on, and then there's no next generation. So it's like, let's say Bogle and Colt, like it's just not a celebrated thing in their like storyline. That's a gap now, and then you got to wait for like the next Native American kid that like randomly becomes a motocross champion to try and like leverage that. Because again, it's like you talk about growing the sport, it's like we're not just going to try and grow the sport to its existing fan base. Like let's get more people, and I think the way that you do that is like you have to have these people that you can relate to and these influences like that you can look up to. So, you know, like there a lot of positive comments on that video, but then a lot of people where it's like, oh, everything should be about race. It's like, I'm not saying that every factory team needs one black rider and one Indian. Like that's not what we're saying. Like we're not trying to create that type of vibe, but it's like, hey, there's a really cool culture. There's some really unique storylines that we can tap into. Those unique storylines and the culture that brings can provide inspiration for people that can relate to that culture and that storyline. And then that then can usher in this next generation and this next generation. So it's not about this like racial thing of like, you have to include this many people. Yeah, it's like, no. We don't need to go that far. Let's just celebrate the storylines, and hopefully that's enough to inspire people. But also, it's dope as fuck. Like, it's just generally dope as fuck.
It is, man. I mean, and I can tell you firsthand, you know, like growing up in New England, I didn't see anybody that looked like me doing what I like, you know what I mean? Like it was very tough. And granted, I mean, I didn't have 1/10 of the atrocities that I'm sure the Stewart family had growing up in the South and stuff like that. Like I, you know, even to this day, I still get some weird looks and stares, but like once they realize that you can ride and you're part of the moto thing, you're fine. But no, I can't even begin to tell you, like, if I didn't have like, oh shoot, James Stewart is only like 5 years older than me, and look what he's doing. And I mean, who knows, man, like having somebody that looks like me at the top of the sport, just being a cool dude that the sport seemed to embrace and stuff like that. I mean, it definitely dropped a lot of barriers for me, you know, mentally. And I saw opportunity. I saw that, you know, I can go to the track and fit in. I can, you know, go as fast as I want and be as successful as I want, and all of this stuff, man. And it was huge. So yeah, if we can have more of that happen, the sport grows, there's more opportunity. Like I'm all for it, man. I think that's so rad that you brought that topic up, and I wish more people did it. And dude, like just the Colt Nichols thing, dude, like you got warrior blood, bro. Like celebrate.
Yeah,
that, man. It's so cool.
Yeah.
I wish that.
Oh yeah.
And instead of showing off the racers' girlfriends and what they bought them for Christmas, show off these dudes' backgrounds, man. Like that would be cool, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%, man. And I just think that it's inspiring to me. And you know, like it's the fucking same argument as like talking about Jett Lawrence being from Australia. What's the difference? That's cultural. Yeah, just he's white, but he's from a different place, from a different cultural background. It's the same shit. Whether you're black, Australian, Native American, like it's all the same thing. Like it's this different cultural background that has some kind of relevance to how you got to where you were going. Add that in. Add that in.
Exactly. And I think just that's going to inspire everybody. So 100%. I'm glad you brought up Jett Lawrence because I've always been a Jett Lawrence fan. Thought the guy was cool and goes super fast. But it wasn't until this past year when I got a chance to meet him and we did some filming. And dude, talk about good families. What a dope dude. And I expected to have some like,
how good's Desiree?
Dude, his dad is so rad. I expected them to be like kind of stuck up and Jett to be kind of cool guy and like, not want to talk to anybody. Dude was so down to earth. I was just laughing with Darren like the whole day, just like shooting the shit, just being nerds, talking about moto and moto families and like, and it's cool because like Darren, like even though his kid is probably one of the next big both of his kids, one of the next big things, that he still has that like I'm new to the sport moto dad kind of like excitement. You know what I mean? Like he's not jaded or anything, and it was just so refreshing to see that. And by the time this airs, you would have seen Jett and I made a bet at this.
Yeah. What is that?
So he showed up and I told him we were gonna do some filming and some vlogging. And I was like, it'd be kind of cool to get the kids involved whenever we go to like a moto camp. I love to, show off the brand and get the kids like hyped up on some cool stuff. And I was like, why don't we do a donut eating contest? Like you pick a kid from the crowd, I'll pick a kid from the crowd. And
sick.
We'll put our kids against each other and see who eats the most. It was like a cup. It was like maybe like 3 or 4 donuts and then a couple of little munchkins. And we had them race, and I think I went a little too hard because my kid was like choking. I'm like, swallow it, I don't care, keep going. You know what I mean? And that kid was just devouring them, man. And then he told the kid if he won, he would give him the jersey off of his back. Which I'm like, dude, I can't compete. When am I going to get this kid?
You can't compete with that.
Yeah, like what? Like, hey, I mean, I'll buy you a car. Like, there's nothing.
Yeah.
So his kid ended up winning by a landslide. And the bet was that if Jett won, I would have to litter my gear, like my bike, everything with Jett's face. And then if he won, he would have to give me like a speech on the podium or something like that. And I lost by so much. I wish I would have won. But so now the video comes out Friday, this Friday, and I'm reading up on the bet. So my whole bike, kit, everything. We made a funny video. It's all Jett's face, dude.
That's so good. Yeah, I saw your Instagram thing and I was like curious. I was like, fuck, I wonder what they're doing here.
Yeah, I'll send you some pics of that. But dude, I'll tell you what, Jett's fan base is absolutely insane. I think 2 chicks when we were going down the road from the track that we were riding, we were at Euphoria MX out here, and we had the bike in the back of the truck, not thinking anything of it, and we see someone honking in a truck and just hanging out the window. And I'm like, the hell is going on? Are they trying to like escape? Are they fighting? And 2 chicks come next to us and they're like, we love Jett. We love the bike. Oh my gosh. And dude, they're swerving. They're out the window on the highway. And they have, moto chicks, moto stickers in the back of the truck. And I look at my buddy. I'm like, they're going to kill themselves to tell us how much they love Jett. Are you kidding me? Like, this is insane. This dude is literally like, riding aside, like accolades aside, championship aside, this guy is just taking over moto, just marketing wise, he's him. You know what I mean? It's rad.
Yeah, I think it takes so like Jett's got a crazy good team around him. Like, so he's got his family. That's like the grounding and the base, and it's like they're not gonna let him turn into a dickhead. And then on the outside of that, you've got like Red Bull, and then you've got Myrtle, who's his agent, and then they're smart, like, I mean, Jeremy from Red Bull's been involved in literally every dude that's ever had a Red Bull helmet on the head in moto. Like, Jeremy was kind of the guy behind that. So, I mean, he's seen a lot of the stuff that, like the Stewarts went through, and he's really got like Travis, like, he's got a pretty acute idea of the way this stuff's gone in the past, what's worked, what didn't work. And then I think like, you look at a dude like James. I mean, it's one thing I'd love to talk to him. Like, I hope one day we do get to do the podcast, because it's like, it seemed like there was a reluctance for him to like really put the sport on his back, and that's completely fine. Like that's totally fair enough, you know. Like, you know, you look at a guy like Tiger Woods, and his dad was like, they made a point of like, hey, you're gonna be the guy that changes golf, and for his whole life, like that's what his goal was, kind of deal. I don't know where James's head was at on that, but I mean, he could have been that guy. But yeah, I think what you've got with Jett is like a kid that has the talent, has the family, and then's got the team behind him. And then on Jett's side, it's like he's down to put the sport on his back and be like, okay, I'm the guy that can grow this shit, and in unconventional ways. Like he's not scared. Like, dude, his TikTok is fucking cringe. Like, to me, as a 33-year-old man, that shit is fucking cringe. But you know what? It's working, and I got to be open to it. You know what I mean? So it's like you've got a guy that just, he doesn't give a fuck. He's just going to do his own thing. He's down to be the champion. He's down to put the sport on his back. But then on the flip side of that, he's got the family that's like really going to keep him grounded. And I think like there's just a part of Aussie culture, man, where like you're just not really allowed to accept yourself as a fucking legend, you know? Like, there's just a part, we've got like really hardcore tall poppy syndrome, and as soon as you start drinking the Kool-Aid, like people are going to tell you you're a dickhead. So I think that, you know, I think that that's probably going to work in his favor as well. Hopefully that it's like, no matter how big he does get, like I just don't know that he's got the people around him that are going to like let him drink the Kool-Aid. So I think the recipe's there for it to really do some amazing things for the sport.
Oh man, I'm so excited to see where it goes. I mean, really, he's only been at it like pretty hard like the last couple of years, man. Can you imagine what happens like 10 years down the road? Holy crap, he's gonna have a strong,
yeah,
man. It's gonna be crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be really interesting. And then, you know, you add in like the Degans, and they're gonna bring, by the time he goes pro, they'll probably have 2 million subscribers. You know, like they're gonna need some bigger stadiums.
Oh, I agree 100%. Things are just evolving, man, like crazy. And you know, you've seen the sport evolve over the years. I think you were there in the big influx of, you know, just all those amazing banger videos. And now we've transitioned to like, you know, the IGs and the TikToks. Where do you see the sport evolving to down the road? Because now that we've got this whole COVID thing, we've had, it's made the whole world turn upside down, but we've had an explosion from a motorcycle side. Like you can't even buy a bike in dealers.
Yeah.
You can't get gear. Everybody seems to be in moto. How do you see all of that culminating to a future of moto? Like what do you think is going to happen?
I want to see it work from like the bottom up. I think in the past, the sport has gone like top, and then hopefully it filters down. And I think what COVID's done is it's put like a huge emphasis on local events. Like, I mean, we drove 3,500 miles each way to do a race this year. And you know, like that shit was just fun for us. Like that's like grassroots. We just wanted to be, because we couldn't go do the trips. We couldn't go to the Supercross races. We don't have AusX. We don't have the New Zealand thing. Like there's all this shit that we can't do because of COVID. So it's just made us like appreciate the ground floor. I mean, dude, even like I'm a Ducati ambassador in Australia, and they've got like this new adventure bike out, and it's like, I've been riding this adventure bike. I'm like, what the fuck have I been doing? Like, why was I not doing this before? This is unbelievable. So I think for me, the big thing that's going to kind of like have like a lasting impact on the sport is just the grassroots participation of riding a motorcycle, and riding a motorcycle in groups. And I mean, I think I sort of said it on the Langston podcast. It's like, it's up to everybody to participate to make it better. Like if you ride at all, go and do a race, enter the C class, take off last, go into the first turn last, and just ride around and experience being in a race. Like, I think there's a lot of people that will watch the races and will, you know, like watch Supercross and be a fan, but they're not like actively participating in it. And, you know, that's been a big part of some of the content that we've been making is like, hey, we ain't that good at riding motorbikes, but we're out there doing it, and it's so much fun, and our lives are better because of it. And I think that you'll see like those people that are at the bottom will like naturally you want to watch motocross and you want to watch podcasts and you want to listen to clips on hydration and arm pump, and you want to hear about riders' backstories, and then that hits that content level, and then these content creators are talking about the top guys in motocross and supercross. So it's like we can kind of build the sport from the ground up. And I think my thinking of it, especially when I was in America making those videos, was like top down moto porn, frothing, and like let it filter down, and the races were like that was the be all and end all. So yeah, I just think like a lot more people have motorcycles, a lot of people are getting into the sport, and I think that if you're an existing person, that is, you're already a member of the club, you're already doing local races, like just do whatever you can to give back to the sport, like invest in your community. And I think that the stronger the community is, like that will have like this huge butterfly effect to helping, grow the sport and solidify what we've got.
Most definitely. I think that's crucial. And you brought up a good point of like almost like that dual sport kind of that enduro kind of bikes. And my 9 to 5, I work for Harley. I developed some of their motorcycles. And
sick.
Yeah.
New adventure bike.
We came with a new adventure bike. And as a moto dude, I see anything street and I'm like, lame. I hopped on that bike, dude.
Yeah.
I was like, this is kind of dope, man. This is like, we're riding off-road, we're developing some suspension stuff, and I'm like, this is rad. I can get behind this, man. Like, what a cool maybe transition for moto guys, but what a cool way for people who might have only had street bikes and they're like, oh, I want to try this thing, which now leads me into a little bit more off-road, which can kind of get me into like maybe a moto or GNCC focused bike on the road. You know what I mean? I just think it's to your point of just going out and doing it, everyone being kind of an ambassador and just trying out new things in the sport, man, and the motorcycling industry as a whole. I think it's going to pay dividends on the road.
Oh, for sure, man. And like, so I got one of the new Multistrada V4s, which is the big Ducati thing, and we got like the dual. Like the on-road, off-road tire, and me and my dad first ride on it. Dude, the thing's got like, what do they call it? It's like adaptive cruise control. Like just cruise control on this thing, and then it like slows down and speeds up. So I just put the cruise control on behind my dad. My dad's on an Africa Twin. We cruised down the highway for like 2 hours, turned left off the highway, and then we just rode all through these fire road trails, all through these hills, like to a completely different town, stopped and had a coffee. Then we did like this sick, like windy turn, like twisty road down into town and then back to home. We did like 500 kilometers in the day, like stopped and had lunch and had coffee. Like, oh, dude, it just... Maybe I'm getting old, but fuck, it was a good day.
No, I think that stuff is rad, man. I mean, the more that we can do that and just get out on bikes, it keeps us from being jaded, I think, Like, it keeps it fresh, keeps it interesting, and I don't know, I'm all for that. So yeah, whoever's watching, make sure you try different stuff, man. Like, you heard it from me, and get it going.
And like we do these events. This company Transmoto, they run these events here where it's like we've got a 4-man team that we always enter, and they'll do like a 12-hour, a 6-hour, and an 8-hour. And you basically you got a transponder and you just do as many laps as you can for 8 hours of this half moto, half enduro. It's like 20-minute loop. They do it all over the country, and man, like that's probably what got me really back into riding was that event, because it was just so fun. So yeah, just go and look for some random shit you can do on a dirt bike with your friends and camp. Like we camp full fucking ghetto style everywhere we go. And like we always have people that come up to us that are like, oh man, like I can't believe you camped in the track. Like I thought you guys would have got like a nice hotel. And it's like, no, this is the shit. Like we love sleeping in the fucking ground and getting up in the morning. Like literally you just sleep next to your dirt bike. I think it's super cool.
Yeah, and it's a lot of fun. Those like fun riding days, man. I want to do more. I know I slack on them, and I almost make it like just so robotic, my riding days. But like I'll tell you what, like the first time I met Berriman was at the it's like that ESPN Red Bull pit bike thing at Sipes' house. And
yeah,
I got the invite to go down, and we did some filming and just chilled and had fun. And man, just watching a bunch of buddies and just being there, just having fun on pit bikes, bashing through the woods, like that stuff, like that put a smile on my face again. That was like this is why I kind of got hooked on moto. Like, you know what I mean? That just like brought back all of the cool moto feelings to me, and it was awesome. I also realized I cannot hang out with those guys because they will make you do some dangerous shit. So
oh yeah,
Pastrana, like I went to Pastrana's house and we started doing some flips into the foam pit, but he had me convinced with my fat ass that I can do a backflip on just super steep like lip. And thank God my girlfriend was there to be like, nope, he's leaving, he's not doing that, let's go. You know what I mean? Probably save my life. But dude, they are gnarly. They can do stuff that just like the normal guys can't. So
every day of their life is like an action figures movie filming session, whether there's cameras around or not. Like, they are heavy duty, like hardcore motherfuckers. It ain't hanging around with Travis Pastrana is not good for your health.
It's not. And you know what? I'm a pretty reserved dude. Even racing, like, I hate doing big jumps. I'll do them if I have, when we're in a race, if I have to, blah, blah, blah. I hate doing them. Somehow, like, they're just so persuasive, and Pastrana's just so, like, encouraging with his words. Before you know it, you're fucking strapping your helmet on, looking down a hill, and you're like, how the hell did I get here? You know what I mean? Yeah. How did I get to this point? I don't even remember. You know what I mean? Dude, it's crazy. The dude is, they're mental, man. But it's awesome.
Yeah, that's
why we love them. But before we start wrapping this up, like I said before, Gypsy Tales has done so much cool stuff. I love the fact that it's not only moto, you do venture into some other stuff. And, one thing that I loved is that you talked about proper hydration in one of the most recent pods you did. And dude, I learned I am severely dehydrated. I get, I've started boxing recently. First time doing any kind of combat sport. I know you're big into jiu-jitsu, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just got into boxing, and man, I was getting such bad migraines. And, thinking about it, I'm like, dude, I was severely dehydrated. That's why, I'm having to take breaks and things are getting dizzy. And listening to that really, like, that was just super helpful. I love the moto stuff, but listening to that stuff, I learned so freaking much, and like it helps my health now. Now I can be more, an optimal Dave. Like, where do you see all of this going for Gypsy Tales, man? Because I feel like it's really like world's your oyster right now. You can have success in so many different avenues with this. Like, what's your goal for it? Like down the road, like 5 year, 10 year, 15.
I'm sort of not a big goals dude, to be honest. I'm a big process guy. So I kind of have like this idea. Well, because here's the thing, right? So at the start of, literally halfway through this year, the dudes at Red Bull hit me up and they were like, hey, can you please send us through like your numbers? Like, we're doing some presentations or whatever. Send us through where you're at for this year. And I was like, I'm going to have to take a couple days because I actually don't know. So I didn't even know the numbers. I could tell you the amount of downloads we did last week, but I couldn't tell you what we've done for the year because I simply just don't look at it. And so I went in, I looked at the numbers, and I figured out that we'd hit 20 million downloads. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I literally had no idea. And I knew we were doing good, but I couldn't have told you that we were doing that good because I didn't check. And like, if you said to me, so that was total. I think we're at like 11 million for the year in June. So it's like, it's a lot. And if you told me in January, what's your goal for June? I would have said, fuck, it'd be sick if we could do like a couple million downloads, right? So if you make these goals, you can end up capping yourself and kind of putting yourself in a box and then doing what you can to like achieve that goal that's within that box. Whereas in my mind, I've kind of switched over more to like a process. Like, I'm more obsessed with processes than goals. So like for me, like Ronan's in here right now. He works every single day. He's like producer and editor and like, well, he's like the other dude that's running this shit with me, So it's like we get in every single day, we sit down, we do our work, we make sure some videos go on YouTube, we work really fucking hard on thumbnails. Like, we just get in and work hard every single day. And we don't really take many days off. And if there's work that's got to get done, we just do it. And then so like by focusing on that process, we like far exceeded our goals. But there are like, I guess, some future things down the road. Definitely gonna build like a proper American studio, so that hopefully when COVID fucks off, we can go back and forward. I want to have a full-time Ronin in America, essentially. And then, I think I wondered too whether like many people knew that we did that like other podcasts, because the YouTube's such like a fickle mistress where you've really got to appease the algorithm. And I just don't think people don't understand, like they shouldn't understand because they're not in the game. But in the YouTube game, like there's this crazy fucking algorithm and you have to like tickle that algorithm's nuts constantly or you just don't get shit. So that was like if you go on our iTunes feed, you'll probably see like every third guest is someone that's completely unrelated to moto. But my podcast and the whole Gypsy Tales thing is like completely self-funded. It's my life's work. It's like if you look at my income and outcome every single month, like on my graph in my accounting software, it's like the tiniest bit of difference every month, And it's like, if we have a massive month, all that money goes back into the podcast. Like, I live in a shitty apartment with fucking crackheads all around me. I have no furniture. Like, it's, and I don't talk about that much because it doesn't really mean much to the people that watch the show. Like, I just want them to watch a good show. But yeah, it's just like, we just constantly reinvesting and constantly trying to just make the podcast better. But as far as the moto content goes, it's like, I needed to focus on the moto side of it to try and really solidify myself within that algorithm so that I could start branching out a little bit. I mean, we've always done this other content. Like there's never been a time where it's always been diversified, but I only posted the moto content on that particular channel because that's what worked. And then that's what gets YouTube ad rev. That's what it's purely like a financial thing. And so, it's cool. Recently we've started to post more of the other content. Like I think tomorrow we're going to have a bunch of clips drop with Logan Martin, who just won the Olympic BMX gold medal. So, and like there's a ton of other different stuff. I mean, I'm not just into moto. Like I'm into, like jiu-jitsu pretty heavily, and I read constantly. And meditation's a huge thing for me. So, I mean, there's all these other lanes of interest that I have. And hopefully those things get a little bit more integrated and they add value, like what you said with the hydration clip. And then, so it's just like keep investing in the process that we've created, keep trying to find really cool and unique people. I do my best to leave my own ego out of it as much as possible. And then, just kind of let it do its thing. But I think the US studio is definitely a pretty big goal. Like we've got access to some really cool people over there, and I'd like to, try and bring that experience. But the thing is like I'm pretty committed to people only being in studio. Like even Dunge the other day, like Dunge was in California for his ride day, and then he was supposed to do the podcast, but the schedule changed, and then it was like, oh, he could do it via Skype. It's like, well, no, that's not how we do it. So, pretty committed to the quality and the in-studio deal. Like that's kind of, I feel like something I'm pretty obsessed with. But as far as goals, man, just essentially I'll probably get to America, get that US studio done, and that's kind of it. The rest of the stuff sort of doesn't seem that important.
I like that take on it, man. In a goal-oriented world, it's nice to see a difference. Like, I only care about like the process, like you said. Like that's pretty solid. And I think that ultimately, if you focus on the process, like you're doing, like that almost guarantees success, and like beyond those goals, like you said, which I think.
So there's a brilliant book by James Clear. It's called Atomic Habits, and I think everybody should read it. And the analogy that really solidified that for me was you've got an Olympic gold medal final, right, for the 100-meter sprint. That's 8 dudes out of 7 billion that are on that start line. All of them have the same goal. So, and one person wins. So what the fuck does your goal matter? Your goal ain't worth shit. What's worth shit is how fast you can run that 100 meters. And how fast you can run that 100 meters is based on the work that you did, the processes that you put in place. So to me, as soon as I heard that, I was like, I can't fucking unhear this, man. Like, your goal doesn't matter. And then, to have that experience where, Red Bull came and asked me the downloads, and I was like, holy fuck, it's nearly 12 million in 6 months. It's like, that is ridiculous. And, you look at, like, I hadn't even looked at how many unique visitors were on the YouTube, and then you look and it's like 1 million people in like fucking just over 28 days. You're like, what the fuck? But if you look at that stuff too much, or you make it like, it's all that stuff's like super out of your control, but what's in your control is like the work that you can do every single day that you step into the studio, or whatever it is, the gym or the track, whatever. And so that process orientated thinking is now like completely taken over my life.
And again, that makes perfect sense. And that kind of answered a few of my other questions, was like, that what you just said is such great advice for that next generation of, podcasters or film buffs, or people just wanting to get into the industry, period. Like, I think that is such good advice to just really focus on the work, like really focus on polishing your input, and the rest will kind of fall into place. It'll fall into its puzzle place. So that's
well, because it's so easy to say what you're going to do. Like, I could say, I'm like, oh yeah, my goal is gonna be 100 million downloads next year. It's like, fuck, that's easy. There you go. I said it. That took literally nothing. You know what I mean? So like, it's just a thing that gets thrown into the ether. It's like the only way that gets done is through the work. So you just do the work, and then you end up there, and you don't even have to say it.
That's so rad to me. Jase, I always ask people this before we wrap up. You've had an extensive career in the industry, doing multiple different things, and you crush them all. What is one thing, if you had the power, what is one thing that you would change about the industry as a whole?
Motherfuckers will get paid. Nah, I mean, I don't know, dude. It's just a process. Again, it's just a process. Like, everyone's slowly working, like, and yeah, I don't think anyone does anything without thinking they're doing the right thing. You know what I mean? Like, Feld thinks they're doing the right thing. Davey Coombs thinks everyone thinks they're doing the right thing. And I guess it's just this process of like uncovering new information that lets you do things better and better. And so it's just this process over time. I think it's changing, but I wish people would, I guess, embrace people's personalities a little bit more. But yeah, I think it's changing. Honestly, I think we're going in the right direction. I think if everyone thinks about their local community, then you can have like a pretty massive impact. Like, because everybody's level of like local community is different. Like, my idea of like my local community is like, I'm doing a podcast with Stank Dog and Jalik Swole this week. Like, that's my local community. So, but that's like on this tier of like athlete, racer, whatever. Whereas like if you're the average Joe, your local community might literally be like a local club day. So like at whatever level, Davey Coombs, his like level that he's at is like running motocross. It's like, I just feel like if everyone invests in their own community at whatever level that they're at, that helps so much.
That's rad. I agree with that. I do agree with the first notion of people getting paid. So
yeah,
that one. But no, that's that. I think all of that will again lead you to a place where the overall motorcycling community as a whole is brought up. So
yeah, a rising tide floats all boats.
Thank you. And that's what I always say to so many people around me. Jase, this was awesome. I really appreciate the time. This is something that I wanted to do for quite a while. Want to thank all you guys out there for watching and continuing to grow this online community you have for the collective. And as always, shout out to our big sponsors, FXR, as well as Overshare Advice and Planning, Flow Vision Goggles, Intake Breathing. We've got those promo codes and those links below. And don't forget, if you want to end up like some of your heroes at the races, check out thecollectivexp.com. Head to @thecollectivex and let us make a career in the sport happen for you. Jase, I hope we can do this again soon, man. This was super fun, and I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, well, you let me know when you're in California next, and then come in the studio and do Gypsy Tales if you want. And you should do you should do more media stuff. I like your take on shit. I like your style. I think you should push in this lane a little bit, I think.
Yeah, right. No, I think I plan to. Whether I like it or not, I think it's shaping up to be like that, man. But yeah, dude, I'd love to be a guest on your show and just come in and talk moto and stuff, dude.
Yeah, just let me know when you're in California. We'll make it happen.
100%. I appreciate the time, and as always, guys, hit that subscribe button, hit the likes, and we appreciate it. Thanks for watching.